the first UFO-related person you represented is John Mack.
That's right.
And John Mack was the head of the Harvard Psychiatry Department. And I think he, through his friend Bud Hopkins, his childhood friend, right, started to see all these cases, these people who no mental health history.
Right.
It wasn't even always through hypnotic regressions.
Right.
They would just say, I had these experiences where I was abducted by, these aliens. And he started to take it very seriously. And so, yeah, what do you think about John Mack and his investigations?
Well, I represented him for 10 years and met dozens of people that he had worked with, was involved in vetting them to determine which ones were credible and which ones weren't, what detailed information they had, and have talked to several absolutely, totally credible witnesses that I could put in front of any American jury, and the jury would be absolutely clear that they were telling them the truth, who have had direct face-to-face contact with one or more of these extraterrestrial beings. They have them in American underground military bases.
They have the beings.
They have the beings.
What? So
they've interviewed the beings. I've talked to people who were there when they were interviewing the beings.
Where are the beings?
That particular one was at S4.
In Area 51.
Outside of Area 51, about 11 miles away.
I would totally distrust that, but I have some good friends who are very trustworthy. So they're a couple, and the husband broke the world record for the biggest wave ever surfed in Nazaré, Portugal. His name's Garrett McNamara, and her name's Nicole, and they're very good people, and they would never lie.
Yeah.
And they have a friend who worked at Area 51, or might be a friend of a friend, but they met him, and he was totally traumatized. And after having worked there,
yes,
and he said that he was led down into a basement.
That's right.
And he saw reptilian creatures, and they were speaking English.
Well, they're telepathic. They're telepathic, and they talk French to French people. They talk German to German people. But they're telepathic.
But isn't that weird? That's strange, though, right?
Strange, yes. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
So, but then, like, if they're that advanced, they're telepathic. They can fly, faster than light. Then how the hell do we corral them into underground bases against their will, or are they happy to be kept?
Well, the one of the ones that I was talking to the guy who was there when they were interviewing one of them. It was clear that it was voluntary, that the extraterrestrial being was voluntarily talking with them, was having telepathic communications. So they was being interviewed.
They're just kind of hanging out in these bases.
Well, I wouldn't put it that way.
What do they want? Why are they there?
What happened is Albert Stein was this guy's name. He called me on his deathbed. He was dying up in northern Minnesota. Called me and wanted me to come and see him right away because he was dying. And so I flew there and went and met him at the hospice. And he's sitting there with all the tubes in him and dying. And he said, look, he had to tell somebody about this, that he was United States Army, was assigned as a clerk typist to Project Blue Book. And that while Blue Book had this whole buffaloing operation going on, telling people that it was swamp gas and, birds that they had misidentified, that there were over 700 actual sightings that they found it absolutely impossible to discount, that they couldn't come up with, because too many people had seen them, there were too many corroborating witnesses, there was radar tracking and everything. And he was assigned to the group that was investigating those sightings. And he would just sit, and they'd send people out to interview all the people that had seen one of these things, and then they would come back and give him their reports, and he would type them all up. And he was there for years, and got to be close friends with the guy who was the commander of that unit. And the guy came into him after a number of years. They shared certain kind of religious views, he with the commander. And the commander came in and told him that he was going to be going to Area 51 and wanted him to come with him as the clerk typist, just to kind of monitor what they were doing. So they went to Area 51. They got taken to S4, went down a number of flights down at S4, and they came to this area where there was this a big room with a two-way mirror in it. And there was an extraterrestrial being there. He was like, 5.5 feet, almost 6 feet tall, had a kind of a light blue jumpsuit on that they'd given him, and he was standing there. And this guy, Albert, wouldn't go near him. He was just traumatized by the guy. And he said he thought he was demonic and didn't want to go near him. But his commander went in and was having this telepathic communication going on with him. And so he stayed outside, and the people that were there staffing the area, they showed him, they had these card files where they had been interviewing the being voluntarily. And he was answering questions that they had. One of the questions was, where do you come from? And he said that he was part of a group of beings that were from different star systems in our galaxy. And that they were part of a team that were going around inside the galaxy, checking on places where life had actually begun on different planets. And they were sort of monitoring what they were doing. And they asked the follow-up question. They said, well, who's in charge of that? What kind of, they didn't say it this way, but what kind of juridical entity, is there that's coordinating this kind of a thing? And he said, well, you people would refer to it as God, but it's very different from what you think. That's what he said. And so they specifically said that they were from different star systems and different planets inside our galaxy. And there he was.
Did he go more into the God thing? How it's different than
he did? That's all. That's what he told me, and that he wanted to share that with me. And he said that he didn't believe him. He didn't believe it because he thought he was demonic, and therefore he wasn't ever going. He never told anybody about this in his life, and he was dying, so he wanted to tell me that this had happened.
This guy was on his deathbed?
Yeah.
Really? What's his name?
His name is Albert Stein.
Albert Stein. He was a clerk?
A clerk typist, U.S. Army clerk typist.
For Blue Book.
Assigned to Blue Book, to this special division of Blue Book that was investigating the 700.
That's absolutely insane. Do you have a video of you talking to him? He just wanted to have me come and see him. So I went and sat and talked to him. Do you have other deathbed confessions like that?
No.
Okay.
No, I've interviews that I've done with live people who've had different kind of encounter experience. Well, for example, also, Barbara Lamb. You know Barbara Lamb?
No.
Barbara Lamb was an associate of John Mack's.
Okay.
And she's a professional psychologist. And she had a practice of kind of helping people who had these kind of traumatic experiences of thinking, at least that they'd had a direct encounter with a landed UFO that was on the ground, that they would have a direct contact experience with the occupants. And most people find that fairly traumatic.
Yeah.
And so she ended up counseling dozens and dozens of people over a 50-year career. She's like 90 years old now. She just became 90 years old. And she's provided to us her archives of all the recordings of different people that she has had sessions with, right? And so after all these years, 50 years of interviewing dozens of people who've had this kind of experience, she was kind of longing as she was approaching 90, kind of wishing she'd get to see one. She'd never seen a UFO. She'd never seen a being. She was kind of lamenting this. And then one afternoon, she came in out of her garden into her house, and here was this reptilian guy standing in her living room. Just standing right in the middle of her living room. And she was kind of taken aback, but he was giving off really kind of extremely friendly, positive kind of vibes. He wasn't scaring her at all, but he came over toward her, and he said, "Look, you have been wanting to get to see one of us, and here I am. So I'm just wanting to let you know you've been doing this a long time, and so that here I am." And then he turned around and left.